I still can't quite figure out how I got on a plane in November 2011, headed to New York City, not knowing I was having a heart attack. Went to sleep that night, then woke up with chest pains. After being rushed to the hospital, my heart stopped on the table. I don't understand how Jesus stepped right in front of death, held my fleeting life in his hand, brought me back from the grave, healed my body, restored my strength. I'm standing here with my joy and my jump. I can't explain it.
Welcome to the Victory for the World Church in Stone Mountain, Georgia with Pastor Dr. Kenneth Del Samuel. Romans 8:37 tells us we are more than conquerors through Christ that loved us. If you need encouragement today, stay tuned. Today on Victory for the World, join Assistant Pastor Troy Sanders in his message entitled, A Notice to the Night Shift.
The 1700s were referred to as the Enlightenment period. It is also known as the Age of Reason. Followers of the Enlightenment period, both in America and Europe, believed that people could discover the truth about the meaning of life by reason alone. They believed that reason shedded light into the darkness of ignorance, superstition, injustice, and tyranny. The 17th century also marked the introduction of what we know as the scientific method. This method is used to discover the laws of nature that govern our physical world. Philosophers believed that they could use reason to discover human behavior and interactions. Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Paine, Patrick Henry, and John Adams were all writers of the age of reason. Great thinkers such as these men believed in observation and in the cause and effect relationship between natural events. Can I take my time? Men and women of the Enlightenment period trusted in human potential. They relied on the power of their minds to shape their own destinies. Just as the law of gravity governed the physical movements of the planets, so did other laws govern human behavior. Rationalism, the belief that truth can be arrived only by reason or rational logical thinking, was also the byproduct of this age. Life went from religion to reason. The idea of seeing is believing was introduced, and everything became based on reason rather than religion. Many children of the age of reason had sharp critiques for the church and Christian dogma, saying that many of our teachings were steeped in mysticism and devoid of any real substance. My brothers and my sisters, contrary to all of this concretized concepts that we currently are so quite clear about in today's culture, I have a confession to make today. This confession probably won't go over with many of my critiques or my critics and more cerebral counterparts, but I think it's important to disclose it nonetheless. As a result of my confession today, I will probably never be invited to sit at tables that study scientific rhyme and reason, giving birth to well-tested hypotheses and theories that govern what we have become, what we have come to know as common law. But I feel I need to say it anyway. Can I say it? Yes. The truth is, I still believe in miracles. I can't quite explain how it happens. I can't quite explain the genetic makeup of a miracle. I don't understand what natural laws bend in what particular way to get a miracle. All I know is I believe in miracles. For some, the jury is still out, but for me, the door of deliberation has been permanently closed. I believe in miracles. I can't explain, my brothers and my sisters, how Jesus can take regular dirt from the desert sands of an ancient faraway land, mix it up into a mud pie with his own spit, place it on a blind man's eyes, and his sight is restored. I can't explain that, but God knows I believe it. I can't explain how after Jairus' daughter fell dead, Jesus goes into a grieving mother's home, locks himself up in a room with a lifeless body, snatches her back from the hand of death. She leaps up, downstairs she goes saying, I'm hungry. I don't know how it happened, but I believe it. Can't explain that while on the way to the dead girl's house, a woman who had been bleeding for 12 long years got close enough to Jesus just to touch the hem of his garment, and immediately the anticoagulating components of her blood did a spiritual about-face, and the blood of her infirmity dried up. I can't explain. I can't explain how after a long hot day in the desert, 5,000 people got hungry with nowhere to buy food. Jesus commandeered the condiments of a young boy's bag lunch and created a golden corral in the middle of the desert, fed all of them with 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread. I can't explain it. God, but I believe it. I still can't quite figure out how I got on a plane in November 2011, headed to New York City, not knowing I was having a heart attack. Went to sleep that night, then woke up with chest pains. After being rushed to the hospital, my heart stopped on the table. I don't understand how Jesus stepped right in front of death, held my fleeting life in his hand, brought me back from the grave, healed my body, restored my strength. I'm standing here with my joy and my jump. I can't explain it. Sure enough, Zion, I believe. My brothers and my sisters, the gospel writer goes to great length to give us first-hand accounts of some of these supernatural interventions that happens on human law and nature. Things that we have come to know as the miracles of Jesus. Yes, my brothers and my sisters, contrary to popular opinion, the past arguments have been settled. Jesus still works miracles. It is through the miracles of Jesus that we gain an understanding of some spiritual truths that supersedes carnal understanding. What are you trying to say, preacher? You can't figure everything out about God. Old song said, while you are trying to figure it out, God has already stepped in it and worked. I wish I had about 30 to 40 folk who know something about getting a miracle that you just can't figure. I tried to wrap my brain around it. I tried to write a dissertation about it. I tried to make it add up on my calculator. But every time I look at what God has done, I have to say, thank you, Jesus. I can't figure this. You don't believe me, so let me go on and make my point clear. What I'm trying to tell you, Victory, is that some things God does and is going to do in your life will defy reason. Yes. You don't believe me? Let me ask you a question. How could you go through what you went through and look like you do? That's a miracle. I wish I had time to talk about it. Somebody in here knows what I'm talking about. I might look a little rough. I might look a little tattered and torn, but you best believe I don't look nothing like what I've been. I've been through the fire and I've been through the flood. I've suffered heartache and I don't look like. Second question, how is it that you are still surviving after seeing so much? How can you still make it? Lastly, how are you still standing after we saw you sinking fast? Here, my brothers and my sisters, in our text, the Bible declares that Jesus, on one afternoon, decides that he's going to teach the people. The crowd got large. Can I tell the story? So Jesus commandeers the little boat of Simon. Says, launch out a little bit. Let me teach for a while. After Jesus finishes his discourse, he looks at Simon the fisherman, the master fisherman, and says, launch out into the deep for a blessing. Simon, not being able to rely on the miracle that he has not seen, reverts back to the situation that he just saw and says, Master, you don't understand that I have been toiling all night and I have still come up with nothing. Jesus says, but he answers with a caveat that says, but nevertheless, at your word, I'll try it again. Bible records that when he went down that time, God called a revival meeting of fishes in the sea. And they found that the meeting place was going to be in the net. And all of them came from near and far, jumped in the net so much that the net broke and the boat went down. And God says, I gave you a miracle. I'm sure Simon could testify the fact that I am standing here on this boat in the middle of the sea means that God still works miracles. What are you trying to say, preacher? The thing that you are standing on has the power to swallow you up if it had not been for the one standing with you. Yeah, there were things that were designed to kill you, destroy your mind. Others went through it and lost their sanity, but God kept you because you wasn't in it by yourself. God got in the boat of your affliction with you. God got in the boat of your hardship with you. And I really just want to talk for a minute. The gathering of disciples is not an uncommon occurrence in the time and culture of Jesus. Many rabbis would gather students around them for the purpose of teaching them Torah. However, Jesus was famous for not gathering the theologically astute of that day, but rather he had the tendency to gather the motley crew of tax collectors, former revolutionaries, plain old sinners, and yes, even fishermen. Jesus does in fact meet and call them, but it's not doing some cataclysmic otherworldly encounter. Jesus meets them on their job. Yes, Jesus calls them from a thing to a greater thing. Jesus, being the meticulous master teacher that he is, intentionally goes after this group. Not only does he go against cultural norms, but he also sets up this face-to-face kind of come to Jesus encounter that spiritual truths can still be gleaned from today. Can I tell you what I saw in the text? 7 truths I saw in this text. Truth number 1, if you can't work for yourself, you will never be faithful in working for God. Got quiet in here. Let me say it again. If you can't hold down work for yourself, you will never be faithful in working for God. God don't call folk who don't have a mind to work in the beginning. Second truth, because I see some of us getting mad. The call of Christ does not come with a crutch. The call does not carry an automatic assumption that saying yes to God means saying no to hard work. What are you trying to say? Preachers can be some of the laziest people in the world because somebody told you just because you got a call, somebody need to bring you a glass of water now. No, you still need to work. I'm going to say it again. With your anointed self, you need to get up. If you're old enough to hang out at the mall on Saturday, if you're old enough to go to the movies on Friday, can I help you right through here? Grandmama said, come Monday morning, ain't nobody laying in my bed in my house. If you gonna eat, you gonna work. I know that just messed with a lot of our theologies in here, but ain't nobody gonna take care of you. God ain't your sugar daddy. No, you got to work. Let me take a side note here and tell you, don't ever let what you do define who you are. You are more than what you do, but do something. Third lesson that I learned from the text. Can I help you? I'm trying to be practical while I preach, because I'm going to preach, yes, Lord. But I want to be practical. Third point I learned in the text, that the true sign of the spiritually gifted, check it out, is not just to speak in tongues, shout and fall out. The true sign of spiritually gifted folk is not to have folk calling your name and putting your messages on YouTube. The true sign of spiritually gifted is not for somebody to find you when you have 2 members and have been preaching 2 days, but now you're Bishop Flo-Flop. That's not the true sign of spiritual maturity. The true sign of spiritual maturity, catch it, is to always identify at least 2 streams of income. I'm going to say it again. You ought to always have something in your back pocket. Come on, I wish I had folk who could go with me. If you are really gifted, your gifts ought to make room for themselves, and folk ought to pay you to do what you're gifted. You ought not just work on a white man's job, but if you got sewing and baking in your belly, you ought to have a little catering business on the side. If you are really gifted, that means you've got more than one means of income. Why is that important? It's called diversifying your wealth. Why is that important? Because if one dries up, you'll never go lacking because you got something to fall. I ain't no preacher because I can hoop. And if the church don't ever pay me $1 again, I got some physical degrees that I can go into corporate America and demand. I'm preaching because God called me and I'm anointed, but I ain't preaching because I ain't got no education and I'm lazy. I'm trying to help somebody in this church today. If you are sitting here suffering and hurting, you're sitting here suffering from lack and deficiency, and you don't realize that you have not tapped in to all of your streams of income. You see things in your head and you can make them without patterns. You sew and stitch. That's a gift. Make somebody pay you for your talent. You got a nice voice. That's a gift. Make somebody pay. You stay in the gym all day long, boo. While you working, go find a modeling job. Make them pay you to take your clothes off. Are you? Not like that. Not. Let me put a caveat there. Let me help you. Don't go to jail, boo-boo. Don't go to jail. Don't go to jail. Are you hearing what I'm saying? And unfortunately, can I say it this way? Other people in other cultures teach their children. When their children are young, they give their children certain type of abilities and they make them play the piano or pick up a saxophone or a baritone. They can't just play ball like we want our folk because everybody ain't gonna be in the NFL. But they say learn a second language because if all else fails, you can go down to the UN Center and interpret Spanish and make a big paycheck. Why? All because you took Spanish classes in middle school. Are you hearing what? It's a limited individual who can only make money one way. I'm going to say that again. It's a limited individual who can only make money one way. You don't believe me? Look in the text. Simon was a fisherman first. Then he answered the call to God. And his call to God did not contradict his work ethic as a fisherman. He could hold both in tandem together. I would to God that young preachers could hear this message, that you just because God called you don't mean you got to leave your job tomorrow. Work yourself out of a job. Number 4, because I see us getting mad. Jesus can't use what you have not first invested into building. I'm going to say it again. Jesus can't use what you have not first invested into building. Jesus preached not from the shore, but Jesus preached from Peter's boat, which meant that Peter had to first invest in his own business and create a platform by which Jesus could stand on. If Peter never would have believed in himself enough to buy his own boat, Jesus would have had no place to stand to preach. What I'm saying, before others will believe in you and invest in you, you got to learn how to invest in yours. I'm trying to help somebody in here. Don't you wait for somebody to discover you on American Idol. Learn how to invest in your. If you can sing, go get you a vocal teacher and invest in. You can't afford to go to school, take out loans because you got to invest in yourself. You might have to pay it off for the next 20 years, but it'll be worth it because when you invest in yourself, you are saying, I believe in me enough not to wait for somebody to help me, but I'll help myself. Peter's boat was working before Jesus got on it. I'm going to say it again. Peter's boat was working, and it wasn't just some small thing. He had enough to employ a number of people. He had an efficient business, which brings me to my fifth point. The lessons you've learned in life can better help you prepare for ministry. You don't throw what you've learned out of life. When you don't throw what you've learned in life out the door when you say yes to God. But that the very thing that you learned in school, God can take that knowledge and anoint it. You didn't know why you were studying computers. But God will teach you how to develop Christian education curriculums that are mobile and computerized. God will marry both your passion with your profession. Can I? God has a way of marrying your passion with your profession. The sixth lesson blessed me. Y'all not tired, are you? A boat full of folk is never the same as a boat full of fish. A boat full of folk are never the same as a boat full of fish. If the purpose of the boat is to hold fish, then you might have to kick some folk out.
If you would like to hear this message in its entirety, please contact us at victoryfortheworld.org for your complete copy.
I hope you found the Victory Celebration broadcast to be inspirational. I'd like to personally invite you to come join us here for worship at the Victory Church. We are located at 1170 North Hairston Road in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Sunday school classes begin at 8:45 a.m. We have a number of adult classes as well as classes for teens and children. Sunday worship begins at 10 a.m. On Wednesday evening, we gather for wonderful Wednesday worship at 7:30 p.m. It is a casual service, so bring the whole family and join us.
Thank you for joining us today on Victory for the World Church. If you need prayer or a church home, call us today at 678-476-6000. Victory for the World Church is made possible by viewers like you, so please take the time to visit us online and make your donation at victoryfortheworld.org. Until next time, God bless you.